Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel General Hospital today. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The drama in Port Charles is reaching a boiling point, and the tangled web of secrets, betrayals, and violence is tightening around some of General Hospital's most pivotal characters. As the fallout from recent events continues to ripple through the town, new revelations are coming to light, and the consequences are poised to change lives forever. At the heart of the storm is Rick Lansing, whose actions have set off a chain of events that could lead to devastating outcomes for himself and others. Meanwhile, Molly Lansing Davis is caught in a whirlwind of emotional turmoil, grappling with family ties and the weight of decisions that could alter her future. Three characters now face the looming threat of jail time, and the tension is palpable as the residents of Port Charles brace for what's next. Rick Lansing, never one to shy away from stirring the pot, has found himself at the center of controversy once again. His decision to send a cryptic and unsettling text to his daughter, Molly, before a violent confrontation has raised eyebrows and sparked questions about his motives. Was it a warning, a plea, or something far more sinister? The text, which Molly received just hours before the second brutal beating of a key figure in Port Charles, has left her reeling. The message was vague but ominous, hinting at trouble on the horizon and urging her to stay away from a particular situation. Molly, already navigating a fraught relationship with her father, was torn between heeding his words and seeking answers. The timing of the text, however, suggests that Rick knew more about the impending violence than he's letting on, and now the authorities are circling, determined to uncover the truth. The beating itself was a shocking escalation in an already volatile situation. The victim, whose identity remains a closely guarded secret for now, was left battered and bruised, with injuries severe enough to warrant a hospital stay. Whispers around General Hospital suggest that this wasn't a random act of violence, but rather a calculated move tied to a deeper vendetta. The first beating, which occurred weeks prior, had already set tongues wagging, with speculation about the perpetrator and their motives running rampant. Now, with a second attack in such close succession, the stakes are higher than ever. The police are under pressure to make arrests, and evidence is mounting against three individuals who seem to be at the heart of this dark chapter in Port Charles. Molly, caught in the crossfire, is struggling to make sense of her father's involvement. Rick has always been a polarizing figure, his charm and cunning often masking a ruthless streak. His text to Molly hinted at knowledge of the violence to come, but it also carried an undercurrent of manipulation, as though he was trying to steer her actions without revealing too much. For Molly, this is yet another layer of complexity in their already strained relationship. She's torn between loyalty to her family and her own moral compass, which is pointing her toward the truth, no matter how painful it might be. As she digs deeper, Molly is beginning to uncover secrets that could not only implicate her father, but also drag her into the legal quagmire that's forming. The three characters facing potential jail time are each grappling with their own demons. While their identities remain shrouded in mystery for now, the speculation in Port Charles is relentless. One is rumored to be a longtime resident with a history of bending the law to suit their needs, someone whose charm and charisma have often gotten them out of tight spots. Another is said to be a newer face, someone whose arrival in town stirred up old grudges and ignited fresh conflicts. The third is a wild card, a character whose connection to the violence is less clear, but whose actions in the aftermath have raised red flags. Together they form a volatile triangle, each one pointing fingers at the others while trying to protect their own secrets. The police investigation is heating up, with detectives combing through evidence and interviewing witnesses. The text from Rick to Molly is now a key piece of the puzzle, and investigators are eager to decode its meaning. Was Rick trying to protect his daughter, or was he covering his own tracks? The ambiguity of the message has only deepened the suspicion surrounding him. Meanwhile, the victim of the second beating is recovering at General Hospital, where the staff is buzzing with theories about what happened. Nurses and doctors alike are whispering about the connections between the victim, the suspects, and the broader web of intrigue that seems to envelop the town. For Molly, the emotional toll is immense. As a young woman trying to carve out her own path, she's been forced to confront the darker sides of her family's legacy. Her father's actions, both past and present, weigh heavily on her, and the text he sent has only added to her confusion. Was it a genuine attempt to keep her safe, Or was it a calculated move to manipulate her into staying out of his way? Molly's relationships with those around her are also being tested. Her loyalty to her family is clashing with her desire for justice, and the pressure is mounting as she tries to navigate her role in this unfolding drama. The broader implications of the violence are sending shockwaves through Port Charles. Long-standing alliances are being tested, and new rivalries are emerging as the truth slowly comes to light. The three individuals facing jail time are each dealing with their own fallout, with their personal lives unraveling under the weight of scrutiny. One is grappling with a crumbling relationship, another is facing betrayal from someone they trusted, and the third is desperately trying to maintain a facade of innocence. The interconnectedness of their stories is becoming clearer, and it's evident that the events leading up to the second beating were set in motion long before the first punch was thrown. At General Hospital, the staff is doing their best to keep up with the influx of drama. The victim's recovery is a top priority, but the hospital is also a hotbed of gossip and speculation. Nurses are swapping theories about who's to blame, while doctors are trying to stay focused on their patients amidst the chaos. The beating has also drawn the attention of some of Port Charles's most influential figures, who are now taking sides and weighing in on the situation. Some are calling for justice, while others are urging caution, warning that rushing to judgment could have unintended consequences. As the investigation deepens, the focus is shifting to the events leading up to the second beating. What sparked the violence and why was the same victim targeted twice? The answers may lie in a series of betrayals, secret deals, and long-buried grudges that have finally come to the surface. Rick's text to Molly is just one piece of the puzzle, but it's a significant one. The authorities are now looking into his recent activities, trying to determine whether he was a mastermind behind the violence, or simply a bystander caught in the crossfire. Either way, his decision to reach out to Molly has put him squarely in the spotlight. For the three characters facing jail time, the future is uncertain. Each is dealing with their own set of challenges, from mounting legal pressure to personal betrayals. But even as she spoke, her eyes darted to the elevator where Spinelli, the geeky hacker with a heart of gold, stepped out, his face pale. He'd been the one to tip off Nathan about Maxie's condition, pulling strings in the dark web to locate the lost agent. Now guilt gnawed at him. "Britt," he stammered. "Nathan, he wants to see you. Alone." The elevator dinged again, and chaos erupted at the Quartermain mansion. Tracy Quartermain, ever the matriarch of malice, stood in the living room, her arms crossed over her designer blouse, glaring at the newcomer. Veronica Bard, a poised woman in her 60s with silver hair and eyes sharp as daggers. Erica Slezak's portrayal brought an air of old Hollywood glamour to the role, but Tracy saw through it. "Who the hell are you, and why should I welcome you into my home?" Tracy demanded, her voice dripping venom. Veronica smiled serenely, unfazed. "I'm here at Monica's request, Tracy. She left instructions, specific ones, for me to deliver after her passing. Something about loose ends, family secrets." The room fell silent. Ned Quartermain, nursing a scotch, exchanged a glance with Olivia Falconeri, his wife, who clutched her necklace nervously. Drew, still bandaged from his shooting, leaned against the mantel, his gaze suspicious. "Monica trusted you? That's rich." She barely trusted her own blood. The grilling began in earnest. Tracy fired questions like bullets. Who was Veronica to Monica? A long-lost cousin? A confidant from medical school? Veronica parried with grace, revealing just enough. A shared history in oncology research, a bond forged in hospital corridors during Monica's own cancer battle. But Tracy sensed more. Whispers of adoption papers, hidden heirs, scandals that could upend ELQ's succession. "If you're here to claim a piece of this pie," Tracy warned, "you'll find it's poisoned." As the interrogation intensified, the door burst open, and Nina Reeves Corinthos swept in, her red hair aflame against the muted tones of the room. "Everyone stop!" she cried, breathless from rushing across town. She carried a folder, her hands shaking. "I have shocking news from Ava. It's about Rick Lansing." Gasps rippled through the group. Rick, Alexis Davis's ex, the slick lawyer with a penchant for trouble, had vanished weeks ago amid rumors of embezzlement and revenge plots. Nina dropped the folder on the coffee table, photos spilling out. Rick in a seedy motel, meeting shadowy figures, vials of unmarked liquid exchanged in dim alleys. Ava drugged him, Nina revealed, her voice laced with disgust. Sedatives, something experimental to keep him quiet while she covers her tracks on the Jerome family dealings. Ava Jerome, ever the viper in designer heels, had turned on her own kin to protect her gallery empire. And now Rick was her loose end. Drew's face darkened. This ties back to my shooting. Rick was sniffing around LQ finances, thought he had dirt on me. If Ava's involved. He trailed off, his mind whirring. Framing Michael was his play, but if Rick resurfaced, the whole house of cards could collapse. Olivia, sensing the tension, poured drinks, her Brooklyn accent cutting through. Let's not jump to conclusions. Sonny's already on edge. This'll push him over. Sonny Corinthos indeed was worlds away, or so it seemed. In a dimly lit booth at the Floating Rib, he nursed a whiskey, his brooding gaze fixed on the door. The mob life had worn grooves into his soul, deeper since Carly's latest machinations and the feds circling closer. But today a new connection sparked hope, or danger. Across from him sat a woman named Jacinda, a sleek operative with ties to international security firms. Mr. Corinthos, she said, her voice smooth as silk, I've heard you're looking for leverage against the Cassadines. I can provide it for a price. Sonny leaned forward, his signet ring glinting under the low light. Leverage is my middle name, sweetheart. But prices? They always come due. Their conversation wove through shadows. Valentine's latest schemes, Spencer's exile, the lingering threat of Victor's ghost. Jacinda's intel was gold. Blueprints for a Cassadine safe house, names of double agents, but Sonny sensed the hook. She wanted in on his operation, a new friend with ambitions that mirrored his own ruthless drive. Back at the hospital, Willow arrived for her shift, her nurse's scrubs a stark contrast to the designer where she'd shed at home. The emotional reunion awaiting her was unforeseen. As she checked Maxie's vitals, a hand on her shoulder made her spin. Nathan West stood there alive, his presence a jolt. Willow, he said, his smile tentative. It's been too long. I heard about your work here, saving lives while the rest of us play in the dark. Tears welled in Willow's eyes. Nathan had been her mentor in her early days, guiding her through the moral quagmires of Port Charles's underbelly. Nathan, how? Their embrace was warm, a bridge to simpler times before marriages, betrayals, and stalkers. But as they pulled apart, Willow's phone buzzed, the unknown number again. She silenced it quickly, but Nathan's cop instincts kicked in. Trouble? He asked. Just family stuff, she lied, but the seed of doubt planted. Michael doubting her, now Nathan probing. How long before the stalker revealed themselves? Was it tied to her past with Harmony, the cult shadows that never fully faded? Elizabeth Baldwin, overhearing from the doorway, stepped in. Her own life was a tapestry of confessions, Jason's return, her divorce from Lucky, the lingering ache of Franco's loss. Nathan, give her space, she advised, then turned to Willow. If you need to talk, I'm here. We've all got skeletons. The three of them stood in a loose triangle, bonds forged in crisis as Britt entered, her confrontation inevitable. Britt, Nathan said, his voice tightening. We need to talk. About why you left. About the lies. The room tensed. Britt's face paled. Liesl lurking in the background like a hawk. Not here, Britt hissed. Not with James watching. But the boy was gone, whisked away by Felicia for ice cream, leaving the adults to their storm. The explosion of words came fast. Nathan accused Britt of abandonment, of choosing self-preservation over family. I thought you were dead too, he shouted. And all this time you were hiding, letting me grieve? Britt fired back, her voice breaking. You don't know what it's like to carry Faison's curse, to watch your body betray you. I did it to protect you, to protect our son. Liesl interjected with a tirade about Albrecht resilience, but it was Spinelli who mediated, his tech-savvy calm a bomb. Perhaps? Data points to forgiveness. Let's hack the past, not relive it. Across the bridge at the Davis home, Alexis Davis poured tea with trembling hands. Her daughter, Christina, lounged on the couch, scrolling her phone, oblivious to the storm brewing. Molly Lansing Davis, the lawyer of the family, paced, fresh from a deposition. Mom, Rick's disappearance, it's not adding up. Ava's name keeps coming up in whispers. Alexis nodded, her journalist instincts sharp. But the real threat slithered in the shadows. Rick himself lurking outside, a syringe of the same drug Ava had used glinting in his pocket. Revenge burned in his eyes, against Alexis for choosing Sunny's world, against Ava for the betrayal. He'd sneak up later, knife in hand if needed, but for now he watched, plotting. The Davis women laughed at a shared memory, unaware of the devil at the door. The oppressive humidity of a Port Charles summer had settled over the city like a damp blanket, but inside the sterile air-conditioned confines of the PCPD interrogation room, the atmosphere was frigid. Detective Harrison Chase rubbed a hand over his tired eyes, the fluorescent light buzzing a monotonous dirge above his head. Spread out on the scuffed metal table before him were photographs that told a story of brutal violence. They were images of Jason Morgan, taken in a grimy warehouse on the outskirts of town. The first set showed the aftermath of a severe beating, broken ribs, a fractured cheekbone, lacerations that spoke of a savage, one-sided fight. The second set, taken just days later, was far worse. It depicted a man clinging to life, his body broken almost beyond recognition. The case was a mess, a tangled web of motive, opportunity, and conflicting loyalties that was quintessentially Port Charles. And at the center of that web were three people whose lives were about to be irrevocably shattered: Molly Lansing, Christina Corinthos Davis, and the man currently sitting in the adjacent interrogation room, Rick Lansing. Chase's partner, Detective John Durant, a grizzled veteran with a cynicism born from decades on the force, leaned against the two-way mirror. So, the lawyer texts his niece, and suddenly we have a conspiracy to commit attempted murder. You buying that, Chase? Chase didn't answer immediately. He was staring at the evidence bag containing Molly Lansing's phone. On the screen, frozen in digital perpetuity, was a text message from her uncle, Rick. It was timestamped just 37 minutes before the security cameras, conveniently disabled for a 10-minute window, had captured blurred footage of two figures entering the warehouse where Jason was ambushed for the second time. The message was simple, deceptively so. He's at the old docks. Warehouse 7B. Keep it to yourself. I'm not buying anything yet, John, Chase finally said, his voice low. I'm just following the evidence. And the evidence shows that Rick Lansing, a man with a known and long-standing vendetta against Jason Morgan, texted the location of his target to his niece, Molly, just before that target was nearly beaten to death. And why would Rick tell Molly? Durant mused, scratching his chin. She's not exactly in his inner circle. She's a diff, for God's sake. It's like a fox texting a hound about where he's hiding the chickens. That, Chase said, standing up and squaring his shoulders, is the million-dollar question. And I think it's time we asked Ms. Lansing. Molly sat in a room identical to the one holding her uncle, her hands clasped tightly on the table. The confident, sharp-witted assistant district attorney was gone, replaced by a pale, frightened young woman. She looked up as Chase and Durant entered, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and defiance. Molly, Chase began, his tone deliberately softer than usual. He'd known Molly for years, their paths crossing professionally and through the complex social fabric of the city. You understand why you're here. I'm here because my uncle sent me a text, Molly said, her voice trembling slightly before she steadied it. A text I didn't ask for, didn't respond to, and had absolutely nothing to do with. Durant dropped the evidence file on the table with a loud thud, making her jump. Nothing to do with? Your uncle, a man with a history of violent obsession regarding Jason Morgan, sends you the precise location of said man, and less than an hour later that man is found in that same location, clinging to life. You expect us to believe that's a coincidence? What else could it be? Molly shot back, a flicker of her professional self emerging. I am an officer of the court. I would never be involved in something like this. Rick, he's unstable when it comes to Jason. Everyone knows that. He was probably gloating or trying to pull me into his mess for some twisted reason. I don't know. But I had no part in it. Chase leaned forward. Molly, look at the timeline. Rick texts you at 9:13 p.m. At 9:50 p.m., the security cameras on the dock are looped. Sloppily but effectively. At 9:52, two figures enter warehouse 7B. Jason Morgan's emergency alert beacon, the one he wears for situations exactly like this, was activated at 9:58. Patrol units were dispatched and found him at 10:15. He was alone. He paused, letting the sequence of events sink in. Who did you tell, Molly? The color drained completely from her face. I didn't tell anyone. Your phone records say otherwise, Durant interjected, though it was a bluff. They hadn't gotten the full records yet. We see an outgoing call placed to your sister Christina at 9:20 p.m. A 7-minute call. What did you talk about? Molly's composure cracked. A single tear escaped and traced a path down her cheek. She quickly wiped it away. That was about something else. Personal. It had nothing to do with Jason. In the middle of the night, right after receiving a cryptic incendiary text from your criminal uncle, you just happened to have a 7-minute personal chat with your sister? Durant's skepticism was thick enough to cut. Try again, counselor. Meanwhile, in the other room, Rick Lansing looked utterly unperturbed. He sat with the practiced calm of a man who had spent a significant portion of his life on both sides of an interrogation table. He sipped from a foam cup of water as if it were a fine brandy. This is a waste of time, detectives, Rick said, his voice a smooth, lawyerly baritone. I have no idea why Jason Morgan was in that warehouse. I sent a text to my niece. Is that a crime now in Port Charles? Accessory to attempted murder is, Chase replied coolly. Why did you text Molly that location? Rick offered a thin, humorless smile. Call it a moment of familial concern. I'd heard a rumor that Jason was in some kind of trouble. I knew Molly, in her capacity at the DA's office, had been looking into some of his business dealings. I thought she might want to know he was in a vulnerable position, perhaps to offer him protection. You expect us to believe you, Rick Lansing, were looking out for Jason Morgan's well-being? Durant laughed, a harsh grating sound. The same Jason Morgan whose son you tried to steal? The same man you've blamed for every misfortune in your life for the past 2 decades? Give me a break. Rick's smile didn't falter, but a cold glint entered his eyes. People change, detective. And even if they don't, my motivations are irrelevant. I sent a text. I did not lay a hand on Jason Morgan. You have no evidence that I was anywhere near that warehouse. And you certainly have no evidence that my niece was involved. This is a fishing expedition, and I'm not biting. But Chase was watching him closely. Rick was too calm, too prepared. He wasn't just defending himself. He was constructing a narrative, one that carefully walled off Molly from the fallout. It was the act of a man who was guilty of something, but perhaps not the crime they were investigating. The break came not from the interrogations, but from a uniformed officer who knocked and handed Chase a note. Chase read it, his expression grim. He nodded to Durant, and they left Rick sitting smugly in his chair. Outside, Chase showed Durant the note. They pulled the traffic cam footage from the route to the docks. They got a clear shot of a car matching the description of Christina Corinthos Davis's vehicle turning onto the dock access road at 9:42 p.m.